Do you have a natural sense of humor? Did you develop this madness?
What do you mean madness? No, I'm perfectly normal. You're the one who's a little...
All right, so where were we? Yes, in trying to understand this road less traveled that I'm on and whether or not it's safe, I'm wondering if the joke teller or comedian who uses humor to deal with pain is any different from the person who just appreciates the good joke. And if so, how? Well, let's get to it.
I have this theory that maybe percentage-wise, comedians aren't more depressed than the rest of society. Maybe the rest of society just isn't talking about it professionally.
To begin with, on the surface it goes without saying that sadness and depression aren't exclusive to comedians.
100% of comedians become comedians because somewhere in their childhood they needed to be funny in order to survive.
And neither is using whatever tools are readily available for your survival.
So all it was a reward, a psychic reward. You know, when you're a kid and you find out that you can get the attention of adults and approval and a little bit of respect, and you just hunger for it, you keep going back for it.
And certainly most people, if not everyone, craves love and respect.
Buy yourself a little red nose. Try complaining with this nose on.
Oh, but wait, there's something different. It appears that outside of a willingness to overcome most humans' #1 fear in public speaking, the split from the comedian and the person who just appreciates a good joke seems to come from the compulsion to use humor to deal with pain. I know that for me, on the night of 9/11, when my neighbors were gathered together for candlelight vigils, I was walking past them to the Hollywood Improv for stand-up. Amongst them, I found my tribe, writers who questioned everything, like philosophers, and valued humor, especially when it came to dealing with painful experiences.
Life is very tough, and if you can make a joke to make something easier and funny, do it. Done.
Even if it means losing what you once thought you needed.
You're this weird, insecure guy who does this and looking like Lenny Bruce said, for love. Going, do you love me?
Yeah.
Temporarily?
Yeah.
Kind of. And can you put that at risk going, I don't care if you love me, I gotta say this shit.
I always get asked this question, you must get asked it all the time, is there anything you shouldn't joke about? And I will say, no, there's nothing you shouldn't joke about. It depends what the joke is.
It's not should, it's could.
Well,
Can you? I don't think that there's a bad thing to talk about because I think that
I agree.
A great thing about comedy is taking people to places that they have fear and foreboding and making them laugh in that place. I think you help them.
I also think that that there's this spate of people thinking that comedy is your conscience taking a day off. My conscience never takes a day off. You've got to be able to justify it. You don't ever think it was a joke, it was a terrible thing and someone was hurt, but it was a joke. You don't think like that, do you? You don't think that comedy is the be-all and end-all of something. You still have a responsibility to not hurt an innocent person.
No, I think that comedy is the be-all and end-all.
Well, that's our job is to think that.
We used to have a rule on my old show.
Is to think, our responsibility is to think that it's the be-all and end-all.
Just like The Catcher in the Rye, you feel compelled to help preserve our innocence in a world that is often scary. And you do your best to see to it that we're able to have a damn good time.
I found a very liberating position for myself as an artist, and that was I sort of gave up on the human race and gave up on the American dream and culture and nation and decided that I didn't care about the outcome. And that gave me a lot of freedom from a kind of distant platform to be sort of amused, to watch the whole thing with a combination of wonder and pity and try to put that into words.
Not caring about the outcome, what do you mean by that?
Not having an emotional stake in whether this experiment with human beings works. I really don't care. I love people as I meet them one by one. People are just wonderful as individuals. You see the whole universe in their eyes if you look carefully. But as soon as they begin to group, as soon as they begin to clot, when there are 5 of them or 10, or even groups as small as 2, they begin to change. They sacrifice the beauty of the individual for the sake of the group. I decided it was all under the control of groups now, whether it's business, religion, political people or what, and I would distance myself from wishing for a good outcome, Let it do what it's going to do. And I'll enjoy it as an entertainment.
And I'll reflect on what it is on its own.
And I'll enjoy it for the entertainment. There's a little bit of a sick part in this, too. Philosophers say, why are we here? I know I am here.
For the entertainment, the show.
And you make peace with feeling like a misfit.
Did you ever stop and compare your life and go, okay, I'm 29, my friends are all married, they're all having kids, they all have houses, they have some sort of sense of normality?
Let me tell you a story about, this is my favorite story about show business. Glenn Miller's orchestra, they were doing some gig somewhere. They can't land where they're supposed to land because it's a winter, snowy night, so they have to land like in this field and walk to the gig. And they're dressed in their suits, they're ready to play, they're carrying their instruments. So they're walking through the snow, and it's wet and it's slushy, and in the distance they see this little house, and there's lights on the inside, and there's a curl of smoke coming out of the chimney, and they go up to the house, and they look in the window, and in the window they see this family. And there's a guy and his wife, and she's beautiful, and there's 2 kids, and they're all sitting around the table, and they're smiling, they're laughing, and they're eating, and there's a fire in the fireplace. And these guys are standing there in their suits, and they're wet, and they're shivering, and they're holding their instruments, and they're watching this incredible Norman Rockwell scene. And one guy turns to the other guy and goes, how do people live like that? That's what it's about.
But the question remains, is it a healthy, safe way to live when it comes to dealing with pain? Apparently the jokes can only do so much.
There's this weird thrill where the people, they see you get to take the stage.
But then the thrill wears off, and then you got to find something.
Do you feel like there's only so much humor can combat the pain? Like,
whenever you're a great comedian and you can't find any more humor in anything, then what do?
Many of the things we reach for in our times of need can only do so much.
It started in school with drinking, and I was like a real depressed kid. And, you know, at 7 or 8 years old, I really get juiced and get out of my And so the teacher would really get bugged, you know, with me singing and carrying on. And
people who deal in content that's on the edge, as you do, oftentimes live a life that's similarly on an edge.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those people go off the rails.
Yeah.
And we lose them and their talent. And you've been able to not do that and been able to pull it back in.
Some of the people who had so much edgy promise, they died young. I mean, Lenny Bruce, Sam Kinison, Andy Kaufman in his way,
sure.
Freddie Prinze, John Belushi, Bill Hicks.
Right.
And it's just, I don't know, of course, Bill had a natural disorder of his own. I think so did Andy, but it's not always behavior, but sometimes it's just genetic. But it's just that I think there's a degree of luck and intellect involved in giving up things that hurt you. The drug and alcohol thing, it seems to me, comes down to this. Drugs and these things are wonderful. They're wonderful when you try them first. They're not around for all these millennia for no reason. First time, mostly pleasure, very little pain, maybe a hangover. And as you increase and keep using whatever it is, the pleasure part decreases and the pain part, the price you pay, increases until the balance is completely the other way and it's almost all pain and there's hardly any pleasure. At that point, you would hope, then the intellect says, oh, this doesn't work anymore. I'm going to die and I'll do something. But you need people around you who can help you. And you need something to live for. You have to have something to look forward to bring you out of it. You know, there are a lot of people who don't have a lot to live for, and they're sort of stuck inside.
Was there ever any fear that by giving up the drugs, you lose a bit of the genius by giving up the wild lifestyle, sanity being the enemy?
Well, that has been a canard for a long time, that most of this creativity comes from being wacky. And I'm sure there's a lot of truth in that, as far as just being plain old wacky. Where the drugs are concerned and alcohol, they do seem to open a window for you. They do seem to broaden the vistas at first. The thing you have to do is learn when, you know, it's like all these great writers who became drinkers. You have to sort of, like, I find with pot, I'm not a big drug user anymore, but I have always a joint somewhere near me. I don't, you know, hidden. Might be hidden. And what I do, and I hardly touch it maybe once a month, that would be frequent for me. But when I'm writing something, and I write perfectly straight, perfectly sober, and I write a whole lot of stuff, 6, 7, 8, 9 pages, and I really pour it out, the next day, One hit is all I need now. One hit, and it's punch-up time. Time to get this thing going. And you do find, with that sort of judicious use, I find there's some value in it. But most of the things we use, don't let you leave them alone.
Well, it would seem that if you're lucky and determined, you learn to lean away from the things that can kill you and into the things that can make you stronger, like writing and telling jokes. You stay true to your intentions.
I hope that what I've been able to do has made you happy and that I was able to take a little bit of pain away from a bad day or anything you're going through. And I hope I've been able to inspire you to make other people happy and to do good in the world.
But in a world that's got way more beauty and love in it than hate, many people, like your average teacher, doctor, musician, counselor, janitor, whatever, work to keep it that way. So is the comedian who decides to tell a joke in the face of pain and help humanity out in that way really that different from the person who just laughs? Well, let's just put it this way.
But don't you ever think as well, when you say we make people have this feeling of laughter and they pay us money, what if they discover they can do it themselves?
They can do it themselves.
Yeah, but why are they paying us?
They can't do it as well.
They can't do it as well.
We are a high-octane version of it. We're pros.
We're drugs, in a sense.
They can play touch football, too.
I want to tell them they can do it themselves.
They can watch each other play football.
Yeah, I mean...
But it's not like
There's
watching
a lot of
it doesn't hurt the NFL.
There's a lot of things that make you feel good, but cocaine's good every time.